Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
When I was walking into the theater, there was a sign that's like, if you're wearing costumes, like the whole thing where they're trying to enforce no one wearing masks or anything like that in the theater, no like lightsabers or anything. But it was the weirdest thing because it was that message with a stock photo of Darth Maul. So it's like,
if you see this man, please report.
Yes, exactly. I was like,
don't let him into your house.
Like if you're going into the bathroom door opens dramatically, he's standing there, Duel of the Fates start. I just want to use the urinal.
He pulls back his hood and then zips his pants up.
Walks away.
At last I've had my revenge.
Like, as I walk into the theater, like, I see a bunch of those probe droids, like, coming out.
What was going on in there?
So, welcome everyone to Box Office Pulp. If you haven't gathered by now, I think we're talking about Star Wars, but who knows?
It is this show, so we're here to talk about Troll.
I did just pick that up. We could.
Wow. That was good timing, then.
It's the 40% off sale at Barnes & Noble, man. You can get some good deals.
Barnes.
Mike doesn't realize that, but in the terms of recent Blu-ray purchases, he's actually force sensitive.
I am.
Ooh.
That and Simpsons episodes that are about to air.
And whenever regularly scheduled.
And whenever Big Trouble in Little China comes on, your choice of food is force sensitive.
I just pour metachlorians all over my Chinese food. Those tasty. Fun fact: in the New Hope commentary we did on Pulp Commentaries, you can
cross promotion.
Pulpnightmare.blogspot.com. You can pick those up.
Cross promotion.
I talked about that droid that was force sensitive. I forgot to mention that his oil is just swimming in metachlorians. I forgot that point.
Oh, you brought it up.
Oh, did I? Good.
It was worth repeating again.
By the way,
Force-sensitive oil.
By the way, that droid is the real villain of Force Awakens.
I knew.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I spoil that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we should say MB is coming to us like 45 minutes after seeing The Force Awakens on opening day.
After having watched Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, Episode 4, Episode 5, and Episode 6...
He's just hopped up on Star Wars.
In a span of 48 hours, so I am ready to do the Force like no one has ever done the Force before.
But did you watch Clone Wars and Rebels?
Oh.
Here's the thing.
Z-Snap.
And the Droids miniseries.
Here's the thing. Because I didn't watch the holiday special, it doesn't matter because I already failed.
Yeah.
It's true. There was try or do. No try, and you fucked that up.
Because
just
here's
like me
the
in that
thing.
line.
The holiday special is actually in canon still.
That's a weird thought.
There's a life day in the Star Wars universe still?
It's amazing to think between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, that happened. That was the first appearance of Boba Fett.
Also, B. Arthur is in Force Awakens.
I knew it!
They're brought back using CGI.
Cody, finish our intros.
Oh god, I haven't even started the intros. Okay, I'm gonna cannibalize the jokes I wrote for the prequel episode.
God damn it.
And use that for tonight, because I don't have an intro made for the original trilogy, which is apparently what we're talking about.
God.
I hope everyone on the other side of this podcast just understands how exasperated I am right now.
Hey, look. I watched the prequels. I'm on your side, Cody. These two slackers.
Hey, we have important things to do.
Well, James...
Wait, are you considering masturbating an important thing?
Yeah. Don't you?
Kind of,
I mean, I did it plenty of times, and I watched all 7 films in 48 hours, so...
Boom.
Oh, I'm sorry, but...
Then again, he kind of gets off on Bib Fortuna's neck.
God, don't we all? Have you seen that thing? It's just so flappy and fleshy. Just wanna...
Oh man, stop it! Stop! I need to
press your
here.
face into it. Just grab his head balls thing and just choke me with that weird head tail you have. And
are those things? Can they actually move those? I know in the movies they don't because they're just like masks, but in universe,
yes,
do they have control over those face
Twi'leks
tails?
aren't real. I don't think so. I think they just hang off like hair.
Because even like in the animated series where they have the ability to make a move, I don't think they have.
Nah,
It seems like a huge waste.
Oh, by the way, when you mentioned Clone Wars, you forgot the Clone Wars miniseries that Tartakovsky did. So
That's true. Although that's no longer canon.
No, it is.
I'm pretty sure it's not. I think parts of that were contradicted by the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah, I think you are kind of right there.
Yeah.
But
Which is unfortunate because the animated series is fantastic.
we're not here to talk to you about Clone Wars.
Okay, fine. Although we do have a game set up with you,
Shut up.
We will do the prequels eventually.
Doing
We
them
will get there. We're doing this shit. Well, not chronologically, but
But
reverse chronologically.
we're doing
doing
this
this-
by spans of time. That's what we're doing here.
Fine. Well, whatever we're doing it live.
look,
So,
It doesn't make
I
sense.
used-
God damn it.
look, I went back on the ship that made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs to be here. So
God damn it, you actually just ruined one of my intros. That was your opening line, MB. That's how I was going to introduce you, and you just, you cut me off at the knees.
I'm
fuck it.
more sensitive. Holy crap!
Okay, well, everyone knows MB, Kessel Run, etc., etc. Next up,
Scoundrel.
Intrepid Secret Murder Machine, R2 James 2.
Beep boop.
And lastly, the biggest hive of scum and villainy this side of Tashi Station, Mike Napier.
God, all these pirates are inside of me.
Also, I'm your host, Flexo.
Also, you have Space Satan inside of you.
Well, who doesn't?
Space Satan.
God, Space Satan is amazing. He's my favorite Star Wars character.
Did you not have a joke for yourself, Cody?
Nah. I might have. I don't know.
Nah.
We've been doing this introduction for so long, he's forgotten.
Yeah, I don't know what we said, what we didn't
I don't
say.
even know
We have
my
to go back for a
goddamn
few.
name anymore. Something Star Wars.
Star Wars. Let me close my notes because these are now useless. Anyways, folks, we're here to talk about the original trilogy. Those are pretty neat.
Yes, Chick, yes, they are.
And that's the end of the podcast.
All right, so I think it would be good to start off. What's everyone's first experience with the Star Wars?
I'll let Coda go first since we already said this on Pulp Nightmare commentary for A New Hope.
Yeah, Pulp Nightmare.
Cross promotion.
Circulating those tapes.
When I watch 3D movies, I always like to shout out 3D whenever it's like, a 2D presentation of a 3D movie. That's what I'm going to do every time we do a cross promotion. I'm just going to shout it out so everyone's aware.
We're happy.
That's the new thing.
Anyways, as a kid, you go down to the video store and you're always drawn to movies based off of like the posters they had up. This was before the internet. I couldn't look anything up. I was too young to really understand, how to find dirt on movies before they came out. I just went off the posters. And Star Wars has some pretty cool posters. There's a lot of shit going on in those things. Lightsabers and bad guys with blasters and all sorts of cool stuff. So I was just naturally drawn to them for that sake. And then I remember my parents saying they got sick of it because I would just rent Star Wars over and over. Like each time I went to the video store, I would have them rent Star Wars for me and just watch it religiously. They probably would have been better off if they just bought me a copy. But no, we just went down to the video store each week and I'd get Star Wars until they said, no, please, for the love of God, rent anything else in the store. That's not Star Wars.
Here, rent Joe's apartment.
Empire Strikes Back then.
Yeah. No, that's what I do with the series. I think Return of the Jedi is probably the one I rented the most often, actually. So my parents were probably just fucking sick of Ewoks.
You're like, the Ewoks are the same size as me.
I can relate to teddy bear people.
I'm soft and fluffy.
Wub nub, everybody. Wub nub.
My nickname was Yub Nub. It's like, it was meant to be.
Dub.
You worship C-3PO.
Fucking
Anyway, Cody, continue.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Just continue, guys.
Just continue. Okay, so just Star Wars. And as a kid, you get into merchandising. So, like, I had all the little action figures. I had, the crappy plastic lightsabers that when you would try and extend the blade, they would get stuck, like, halfway extended. Because the blade's made, like, 8 pieces that kind of collapses together. So I would have, like, a half lightsaber I could futz around with. I think it was the toys that really sold me on the series, if anything else. Because, sure, there are a lot of great movies, but how often do you get a plastic sword you can just run around and hit people with and they don't get too mad?
Exactly. Like, oh, he thinks he's a Jedi.
He thinks he's a tiny murder machine. It's adorable.
Let me ask you a question, Cody. What were the first versions of the Star Wars movies you got to see?
Let's see. I know I saw the special editions when they were released in theaters, but I was already familiar with Star Wars before then. So I must have been introduced to the original versions.
Yeah, so was I, but I've wondered, installing the story on the Pulp Nightmare commentaries for Star Wars.
Cross promotions!
I haven't figured out how I saw the original versions. I know,
Right?
when I was really young, because my mother's favorite movie is Empire Strikes Back, so she sat down and showed it to me.
Mhm.
But I don't know if we've rented them. We never owned them until the special edition that we had the really nice box set that came out, the VHS box set.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
all
Vader's
black
face.
with Vader's face. Awesome. But we didn't own them before then, so I still don't know how I watched them. I don't remember ever renting them. I don't know if somebody owned them and we borrowed them.
My buddy with laser discs, video discs, he has them. So he probably still has the original versions. So if everyone wants to watch some video discs, oh yeah.
Go to his house.
Go to Mike's house. I'll send you the address. Just message me.
Not this mic, the other mic, the mic.
Video mic.
Different Mike.
I mean,
Penny Mike.
if you guys want to come over to my house, I could use some company.
Don't go over to Mike's house, for the love of God.
Come on.
He doesn't wear pants.
Come on
That's
over.
half the fun.
Come sit on Mikey's lap.
Yeah, well, there's half fun in there.
Stay on target.
I don't even know what that meant. I'm sorry.
Stay on target. But, what was I going to say now? Damn it, now I'm just imagining creepy time at Mike's house.
You should always.
Put some pants on, Mike, come on.
No!
James, your first experience with Star Wars.
Well, actually, though, if you do want to watch the original version of Star Wars, they released them as a special bonus feature on the DVD sets.
Yeah.
So if you got, the collector's edition.
In 2006, they released, they released them as the original unaltered versions, but they were just disc 2 special. They were on disc 2.
Yeah, they were treated as, essentially, documentaries of the special edition, weirdly.
They haven't been cleaned up either. They're not remastered or anything.
No, they're a little bit. They're better than the Laserdisc, but they're
rough in quality.
Yeah. In some ways, that's a little bit better because some of the transfers, at least at the time, I don't know if the Blu-rays got better, kind of futzed up some of the coloring. I know specifically the lightsabers for a lot of the DVD releases were all kinds of screwed up looking.
I think they fixed that in the Blu-ray.
I think so. I think they went back and just kind of recolored them by hand.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, James, you're next to bat. Tell us about the Star Wars.
Star Wars is one of those movies where it's really hard to find my first memories, because it's one of those movies, it's like Back to the Future, it was just always there. But I have the vague memory of watching A New Hope a lot as a very young kid when it was on television. That was a Fox 10 Saturday at the Movies favorite for quite a while, which I believe was still the original versions at that point. But I distinctly remember, for whatever reason, just not having seen Empire or Jedi for years and years until I was at least 6 or 7. And having a conversation with my dad about the movies where he found out that I had somehow missed the other two movies. I
disowned him, threw him out of the house, this is done.
I vividly remember him describing the plot of Empire Strikes Back to me in detail and it blowing my mind. Talking about the Battle of Cloud City, where Luke forever lost his hand to his father, Darth Vader.
Wait, he spoiled that for you?
Well, I already knew that from popular culture. Because that's pretty damn ubiquitous.
That would be amazing if he got so into it that he was like, and Vader is his father. And you,
what?
As
no,
that's impossible.
That's impossible.
It's
weird.
not true.
Did I fall off the jungle gym?
It's funny. I, too, have no memory of ever not knowing Vader was Luke's father.
Right? Yeah.
It's just a pop culture thing, I guess.
Grew up
Osmosis.
After that, I don't know if it was because of this conversation or not, but pretty soon after that, my parents bought the VHSs of the special editions, which were around at that time, and me just sitting down and watching all 3. So that was a weird instance whenever we were watching the original versions for the commentary. It's I've never seen Return of the Jedi without the weird musical number in the middle.
Was it Jedi Rocks?
Luke be a Jedi tonight.
Oh man, that's the special edition we deserve.
But yeah, those movies growing up, like I don't think I'm anywhere near alone in saying this, but those were part of the firmament of my childhood. I mean, along with The Muppets and comic books. Like George Lucas, Jim Henson, and Stan Lee own the childhood of several generations.
Oh, yeah. God, my fondest memories is going to see Empire in theaters when they released the special editions. I remember it vividly going to a mall theater and sitting down. Like, I can still picture to this day that screen with the darkened theater around it and seeing Empire on the big screen. It melted my little brain.
It's funny. I go back and forth on whether or not I actually went to the re-release whenever they did them, because I remember being really hyped, and I have a vague memory of going to see one of them. Like, it may have been A New Hope, but mostly the time that I remember from the re-release period is going to Taco Bell and getting a kid's meal and having this weird toy where it was like a cube thing, but it had a mirror effect on it where it was like one side of it was Yoda's head.
Oh, yeah.
The other side of it was Vader's head. And I always was really confused about that because I was like, what are they implying? Even as a kid.
Yeah, I distinctly remember having the same thought.
But, like, I also own, like, the Death Star toy that they had where you push the button and it's like...
It explodes.
It like, unfolds and it's like a light effect in the middle of it. Like, this little plastic thing lights up, and I had a Millennium Falcon type thing that would...
I had a great one.
There's a Cloud City.
Yeah, I had the Cloud City one that used, like, magnets to stand up.
Yeah. I had all those, too.
But yeah, I distinctly remember that from the re-release period. That's not my first Star Wars movie memory, though. So, James, did you have any more to say?
Oh, I don't know if, I'm sure we'll get into the toys later on, but I'll say one of my most beloved memories from my childhood is constructing a model Millennium Falcon with my dad. Because model making was this weird hobby we just picked up for like a year and a half for no particular reason. Whenever I was about 10 or 11. And there was several months of work into this like gorgeous, like 3 feet long Millennium Falcon that was fully painted, and the top came off, and inside was like a movie accurate replica of the inside of the Millennium Falcon with a little Han Solo and a little Chewie that we painted.
Did they have the hollow chest?
There was the hollow chest table. I remember
it didn't
that.
Turn on.
It was the best thing in the world.
The closest thing I had to that was like this Millennium Falcon that I got. I think it was like it was supposed to like carry action figures or something. I don't remember, but you could open up the top and it was like the floor plan of the Millennium Falcon. It had like the chess table there and the cockpit and everything was in there. I remember just studying that like it was studying the blueprints of the Millennium Falcon. It was that so damn exciting. Like I was actually getting to see inside of it.
I know. It's like, oh, secrets revealed.
That was so cool because you could actually, you couldn't do anything with these, but the secret smuggler compartments in the floor were actually there that you could open up. They served no purpose other than, hey, remember these from that one scene in A New Hope?
Did you guys ever play the Shadows of the Empire video game?
Yes. I have it across
I
from
knew
me right
of
now.
it. I just never actually played it. Weirdly enough, like, as far as video games go, like, I played the pod racing game for N64, and then I didn't play another Star Wars game until Star Wars Bounty Hunter for PlayStation 2.
God, that pod racing game was impossible, but so fun.
It was hard, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
A lot of explosions.
Lots and lots of explosions. Never knew what the hell was going on, but goddamn did I have a blast.
Just have to race, man. Fastest. Be the fastest.
My game was always Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most fun games of all time.
Did you guys ever play Republic Commandos?
No, I never
Yeah,
tried
I
that
did.
one.
God, that was for Xbox. And luckily that's still technically canon because they reappeared in the Clone Wars series. But God, that game was fun. It was based on the idea that it was like, you went out as a 4-player squad of clones, but the idea was that these clones were developed with, Nazi actually, they're clones, but they aren't of each other, so they all have their own personalities and specialties for essentially secret Navy SEAL type missions they have to be sent on.
That's what gave us Commander Cody.
Exactly. And God, that was one of the most fun games I ever played. I'd love for that to be re-released, cause, like, just having, like, because you could switch between all 4 of them as you played, so you could go to the demolitions guy, and then the heavy weapons guy, and then the stealth guy, and the guy with the jetpack.
Jetpack guy. I wish they'd do an HD remaster of Shadows of the Empire, because that game had pretty much everything you could love in Star Wars. There were levels where you just sit down and shoot TIE fighters.
Yes.
There were levels where you like run away from Wampas and you try and knock down AT-ATs, and you got to do pretty much everything. You fought Boba Fett.
You did. That game, you literally did everything. You went to every kind of Star Wars planet.
Yep, there were races on Tatooine with speeder bikes.
Yes. God, that level was hard. I was literally just trying to replay that level a couple weeks ago, and I still couldn't.
It's so hard. God, I would always get stuck where you have to like fight IG-88 and there's a train.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of looks like a train. It's hard to see because it's 64 graphics.
Yes.
Did you guys, curious, did you guys ever play Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo?
I saw a friend try and play through it, and it seemed hard as shit.
They are. They all are. They, to this day, because I play a lot of Super Nintendo ROMs and emulators, I've tried to play all 3 of those games. I can't get past the first level on any of them.
That sounds about right.
Ridiculous. They throw enemies at you that aren't in the movies. Like, there are these weird lizards that come at you, like, at every turn, and it's a really intense arcade-style beat-em-up where they just throw everything at you, and you're expected to shoot at every millisecond that anything is on screen.
And be sitting there, these guys aren't canon, they can't hurt me.
What's Mara J doing here?
Come back, Mara J.
But anyway, we got on a tangent there.
Hey,
Right, we should be talking about Star Wars toys.
Yeah, we were talking about our Star Wars fandom.
I'm telling you, that was like the biggest thing. Because the movies it won't take you so far, but when you have the toys and you can constantly surround yourself with Star Wars, like even when the movie's not playing, you can sit around with Dash Rendar, the action figure.
Dash Rendar.
Here's something that has fascinated me since childhood. The fact that before the prequels, Star Wars was able to maintain itself as a brand for decades on 3 movies.
That's impressive.
And that's pretty much it. It was like just the 3 movies, because at that point there weren't all sorts of different cartoon series that were running for this.
Like, for example, imagine if right now, since 2001, everyone was still going apeshit over the Matrix trilogy. And there were Matrix games, Matrix cartoons, everyone was still wearing Matrix t-shirts. Like, pop culture was Matrix, Matrix, Matrix. Keanu Reeves still showed up to make ironic cameos and things as Neo. Like, imagine that craziness. That happened with Star Wars.
And the funny thing is, I mean, other than books and comics and a couple of so-so video games from, the 80s and the early 90s, every other piece of media other than those books failed miserably. Like, I mean, I'm not even just talking about the Christmas special. There was the couple, droids and Ewok adventure cartoons that came out, and which killed it kind of showing up anywhere else. There was never, and a cartoon never came out of anything because of those.
It's weird to think that Star Wars basically kept going because they allowed people to write fan fiction and sell it, and that was just exactly what everyone wanted.
See, to me...
Write me a trilogy about Boba Fett being really badass. Sure, yeah, fine.
See, to me, here's the thing, and this is going to be kind of a controversial statement because a lot of people don't agree with this, but I never liked the expanded universe, to be honest. And that was always what the expanded universe felt like to me, was just a bunch of fan fiction that didn't exist outside of the movies. So it was literally like that for me growing up, in that Star Wars literally just was the movies, and then the toys, and then the video games, and like there was this other thing that was kind of a continuation in my mind, but not really because they were just stories I didn't really have an interest in. It was very laser focused on the movies for me, which is very strange because you would think with something like Star Wars you would want to get into every single piece of it, but I wasn't even like a guy who, like Cody mentioned earlier, having action figures of like various characters and stuff. I had maybe a couple of action figures of Darth Vader and one Luke and maybe a no, not even a Boba Fett, a Jango Fett when Episode 2 came out, because I don't know, like for something like Star Wars, I was always just so, it's hard to explain. Like I was very specific with the things I liked.
You were religious about it. You would not worship the false idols of toys and video games.
Meanwhile, I was my Ruth Forlom and Zucker, the action figures, like, yeah! Where's my boss action figure?
And I should say that I do regret not getting into more of it when I was a kid, because as a kid it was kind of amazing to be around Star Wars because, like you said, the prequels didn't exist, so it was living off of the laurels of nothing but greatness. Like, people didn't even criticize Jedi back then. Like, and there were the special editions, so nobody criticized anything about it. It was this holy grail, and it was still going. So it was such a weird experience for me growing up and just being only a fan of the movie and then a couple of other things on the side.
I feel like a lot of its staying power had to do with the fact that it was pretty much the only sci-fi people were getting outside of novels and crap TV shows like Battlestar Galactica. Like, it was sci-fi. Adventure sci-fi, at least.
Yeah, there wasn't very much else like it. Plus, on the other side, it's not like today where 6 months after those movies came out, you could go to the video store and pick them up and own them. It's like, yeah, once you saw A New Hope, they would have to re-release in the theaters for you to see it again. Unless you were able to get it on Betamax eventually.
Yeah, that was a weird thing, is like they weren't really a bit like going into my first exposure to Star Wars. I was exposed to them through recordings of TV airings for them because, like I remember going, like my parents going over to a friend of the family's every so often, like every week. And I would go over there and just have nothing to do, so they would have to find ways to occupy my time because all I was really into at that point was Batman and like a couple of other superheroes. Like I wasn't really into a lot of things, so they were trying to keep me just from, you know, just being a kid and getting into stuff I wasn't supposed to. So
no, MB's back in our cocaine stash.
Oh no, he's a little Scarface now.
It becomes Pulp Fiction.
Say hello to my even little friend.
But I finally they just one night they just set me down with these movies that they figured would at least like catch my attention, because my dad was a huge science fiction guy, but he was always more of a Star Trek guy. Like he worshipped Next Generation and stuff like that. So he was, I think, just out of that, he was like, well, maybe he'll like these, because I never took to Star Trek as a kid. But Star Wars, when I watched the VHSs for the first time, it didn't have an immediate effect, but it had this almost subconscious effect where I watched the films. Like, I watched, episode 4, 5, and 6, and I would just leave it alone for a while. And then whenever I would go to the store, I would see the toys, because the toy lines were still very active in the early 90s. Like, Kenner had an amazing assortment of toys. And the thing that I remember vividly was there was a 12-inch doll of Darth Vader looking very menacing and just kind of imposing. And I was always more of a visual aesthetic, even as a kid, sort of person. So that image, and let's face it, the fact that he wears a black cape and I was really into Batman, that really captured my imagination. So the more that I was exposed to it through cultural osmosis, the more I got into it subsequently through that. And then finally, my dad got me the special edition VHSs, and I wore those out, watching them repeatedly. And then just as the prequels came out, it intensified even more, because I was 9 when Phantom Menace came out. So that was a really big deal for me. And I wasn't of the mindset of someone who didn't like any of the movies. Except for Attack of the Clones, which I never saw in theaters because, weirdly enough, that coincided with Spider-Man. And every time I went to the theater, I just wanted to see Spider-Man again. So I went to see Spider-Man like 5 times that summer. Never once went to see Attack of the Clones. Thank God.
Dodge a bullet there.
Yeah. But, like, it was this thing where it was just like, it was constantly in my life, but I always had this weirdly distant relationship to it until I had the VHSs, like the full-on, like, special edition.
This is a weird thought, but I wonder if it's the same for kids today, where, you know, we all saw A New Hope when we were very young, because obviously the movies were shown kind of in order to us. And A New Hope, I mean, all the movies are very of their time, but A New Hope is 70s as fuck.
Oh, yeah. I rewatched the trilogy in preparation for Force Awakens, and you can't get past how dated that movie looks, even. Like, everyone just has 70s hairstyles, 70s aesthetics. People, I noticed, like, in the beginning scene where Princess Leia's ship is being convoyed by the Empire, where the rebel soldiers, the looks on their faces is like, there's something a 70s aesthetic about it. Like, I don't know if it's the makeup, I don't know if it's the cinematography, but you look at those dudes and it's like, those are dudes in the 1970s.
Well, the fact all the extras in that movie were also like, this is a stupid kids movie. But I do wonder if kids today are quite the same, where they would watch that movie for the first time and not notice how kind of dated it is in a lot of ways. I just curious if that kind of carries over to, you know, millennials, as you like to call them.
Well, I had kind of a heartbreaking experience whenever I was in my teens, where I was with my cousins who were about probably about 6 and 8 at the time, and I decided I was going to sit them down and show them the Star Wars trilogy on VHS. And like 10 minutes into New Hope, they could not care less that a movie was on.
No.
Ugh.
It's like, no, this is magical. It's like, this is an old movie. This is stupid.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, almost rite of passage in a weird way, where it's like, you have to be, and I have this theory about a lot of films as well. Like, I only saw Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time when I was actually Mike was the first one to show me it all the way through, and I was 20 at the time. And it didn't have the effect on me that it has on everyone else. So I feel like films of that time, particularly, like of the 70s and 80s, you have to be the right age to see and fully appreciate. And Star Wars is kind of like that if you show them A New Hope, because A New Hope is just such a stark difference between Empire and Jedi. Empire and Jedi look like epics. A New Hope looks like a low-budget fan film almost.
I was like, I guess we should get into talking about the movies, and starting with A New Hope.
Nah.
And starting with A New Hope, I mean, I'm not about to say anything disparaging against any of the movies, of course, but A New Hope is more of a kind of low-rent fantasy kids movie that I think a lot of people want to admit. It's a little bit, it's awesome, and I'm not even saying that like it's a bad thing, but I mean, is kind of what it is.
Oh yeah, it very much wears itself on its sleeve, and the thing I kind of noticed rewatching them recently, because I rewatched them a couple of times, I did the bulb commentaries for the Star Wars trilogy.
Cross promotion.
Thank you, Cody. When I was rewatching them, and then when I rewatched them again today, I was noticing more and more that, like, Star Wars A New Hope is a all-out 70s fantasy movie that just happens to feature lightsabers and stuff. And that's the opinion I used to have of the entire trilogy. Seeing the entire trilogy back-to-back in such a short span of time made me realize that, no, that's not it at all. A New Hope is that to a T, and then the other two films are something else entirely. And Star Wars, like, I keep wanting to call it Star Wars because in my head, like, that's the title of the movie. But I define it as sort of a coming-of-age young wizard's tale, where...
Yeah, very much so.
it's a mage's tale where you see a mage apprentice rise up out of Luke Skywalker, and there's this crazy old hermit Ben Kenobi who has this pointed robe, very much like a wizard, like you would imagine a stereotypical wizard, and then you have like the dark wizard in Darth Vader, you have the evil dungeon master in like Governor Tarkin, and you have the you have the massive sprawling out dungeon like the Death Star, and you have like the rogue and the mage and like the princess. You have all these stereotypes fitting in there, but they're just twisted and tweaked to be of a space opera of a Flash Gordon variety.
Yeah, all the Star Wars movies are sci-fi fantasy, but A New Hope really relies on the fantasy in a heavy way. Like, it uses a lot of fantasy imagery. Like, there's the dragon skeleton and Tatooine when the droids fall. Like, there's all that kind of stuff, you know. Ben Kenobi's robe looks completely different than all the other Jedi robes that you then eventually see. Like, it's just, it's all different.
They don't even bring that aspect back for the prequels, weirdly. Like, that movie, A New Hope, is the only time he has a pointed wizard's robe, like a flat-out wizard's robe.
Yeah, New Hope is just flat-out a fairy tale.
Yeah, very much so.
It's definitely it's a King Arthur movie, essentially, but in space.
And then when you get to Empire, it's like stark how completely different that, I mean, more money, or money, rather, and just so stark, and like, it being shot by someone who's has visual flair.
Yeah, I mean,
Zing.
Look, the fact of the matter is, the way that The New Hope is that the reason for all of that, the reason for all of the difference is that George Lucas was only making his second real film, and he also was doing this completely experimental thing that he didn't even know would work. He was doing something where he was just going with the script he had written as kind of a loose treatment, and then went for it in a major way, and nobody supported him, nobody backed him. He had to beg for funds, he had to pull together entirely new ways of shooting like special effects.
And as it's been stated famously multiple times, the crew Lucas was given was a British crew, a very British crew, who didn't respect what they were doing at all and thought it was very stupid and would make fun of it while they were filming. Well, so also, everything was difficult.
Also, there's a thing that was pointed out recently where every scene that takes place on the Death Star looks like it's a BBC production.
Everyone has mutton chops all of a sudden.
It's British as hell.
That's weird. When you have these scenes on Tatooine, you have the scenes on Yavin 4, and you have these space battles and stuff. It doesn't look nearly as British. But for some reason, the Empire is just overly British.
All the SEALs do that.
It's like everyone knows they're working for Peter Cushing, so they're trying to accommodate for him.
Oh, we better get Hammer up in here. But I think that's really fascinating. The idea that what A New Hope was trying to do was so out of left field, and so not unlike how sci-fi had been presented up to that point, that people thought that that was going to be the biggest train wreck. Like, there's a great story Mark Hamill tells about being in a theater where the first trailer for Star Wars played, and just being so excited. Yeah, these people are going to see the movie I'm in. And they get to the end of the trailer where it says, "Coming soon to a galaxy near you." And some guy above Hamill says, "Yeah, and it's going straight to a drive-in the next day."
And here's another story that Hamill just told on the red carpet premiere for Force Awakens that he's retold a couple times over the course of history, where the movie was so not marketed because nobody knew what to market it as that they didn't have posters for the theaters. They had lobby cards.
Yeah.
They had lobby cards that they would give out of am I butchering this by saying Ralph McQuarrie. I kept wanting to say Rick McCollum, but he's the producer. Ralph McQuarrie drawings of the characters were just handed out as lobby cards because nobody knew what to do. They went to a sci-fi convention and a comic book convention, and they just had weird T-shirts that nobody knew what it was attached to.
Yeah, that was the original mystery box. Poverty.
It was probably really like J.J. Abrams would be all over that. Cloverfield 2, no money for CGI.
But let's take a second just to think about that of where sci-fi was when Star Wars came out, because the adventurous, like fun sci-fi that Lucas was emulating was from a completely different generation.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he got his inspiration from Flash Gordon films.
Yeah, Flash Gordon films and pulp novels.
Samurai movies.
Yeah, and at the time, science fiction was 2001: A Space Odyssey.
It was that and Star Trek. And maybe Battlestar Galactica. Like, it was just, they all fit a certain paradigm of themselves. And I'm not dressing down those franchises at all because...
No, dress down the original Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, feel free, because good lord.
And was just a ripoff of Star Trek. I mean, of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, but
like,
there's the Buck Rogers TV series, too, that was going on in the early 70s.
Yeah, well, but like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon were big at the time. That tells you how different sci-fi was because nobody gives a crap about those two anymore except for the 70s, the 80s movie, maybe, for Flash Gordon. Because Star Wars was such a thing that when it became big, it dwarfed an entire genre.
Well, Star Wars tapped into a need America didn't know it had in the 70s, which was just pure escapism.
Well, also, something that I've also long held as sort of a difference between Star Trek and Star Wars is that Star Wars is accessible science fiction, as opposed to Star Trek, which is science fiction to a T. So you really have to get into that, like, in order to follow the lore and stuff. But Star Wars was just like, it was popcorn science fiction in the best way imaginable, because it literally helped create the blockbuster along with Jaws, but it was just something about it channeled into everybody, and as opposed to just one narrow path of people.
And just creating a world that moviegoers could walk into, something that hadn't been seen at all in any form up until then, really. Like, it's the ideas presented in that film, and both as a sci-fi film with this fantasy lens on top of it, made it something so completely new that's what changed the sci-fi genre, which was just either incredibly highbrow intellectual stuff like 2001, or what essentially amounts to kids' TV like Buck Rogers. Like, that was it. Just like something that some crazy robots had some crazy robot stuff, or something that said a lot. Not that, Star Wars doesn't have very interesting philosophies behind it, but it was like, I would like to see the alternate universe where Star Wars never happened and see what filmmaking is currently like.
Not just filmmaking though, but the way we treat tie-ins for movies.
Yes.
Like, a lot of times for merchandising, you would wait till after the movie came out, and if it was popular, then you'd make the merchandise. Star Wars came out, and no one expected anything of it. The studio already kind of had it written off, so they allowed George Lucas to just take merchandising rights for a big cut in pay, because they figured, well, we're never going to sell any toys for this. We just pay him less, that'll be perfect. Which actually tended to be a gigantic mistake based on how many billions of dollars they made on toys.
Oh.
But Star Wars came out, it was a huge hit, and toy manufacturers realized, oh shit, we don't even have plans to start making any of this stuff. They had nothing. There were like some t-shirts on the market, and that was it.
Yeah.
So,
And that famously led to them selling cases for the action figures that they were going to be making and release later that year.
yeah, you bought an empty box for Christmas that had some Star Wars stickers and a little note saying, hey, you can get real toys later if you send in like the box top.
Best Christmas ever.
It was like GameStop with video games.
Somehow
So that's
Jaws had more marketing than this.
Yeah, so it completely changed how we do movie tie-ins now. Now it's like, okay, there's definitely going to be a Happy Meal toy before the movie comes out, and you're going to be able to buy a Kylo Ren action figure before you even see the movie. You don't know what this guy's like. He could be a completely minor character, but you could buy his goddamn toy before you're even in the theater. You can buy a remote control BB-8 and play around with that half a year before the movie even comes out.
There's Star Wars oranges, by the way. I've seen these in stores. Star Wars BB-8 branded oranges.
Oh, I want one. By the way, I just want to rewind for a moment and explore the idea of a young Cody unwrapping a Christmas present, seeing a Kylo Ren action figure and thinking, what if he's a minor character? I do not want to play with the action figure of some extra.
That's legit, man. I have refused to buy any of the new Star Wars toys that have come out just because, like, Captain Phasma, what if she's a nobody?
Hey, I remember, I still have my Darth Maul figure, and he died.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
Yes, yeah, Darth Maul is one of the best cases of that, in that the entire movie was centered around him, and he appears in one scene and then at the end.
He's in a couple scenes.
He's in a couple, but mostly just those two scenes. Like,
God,
he has like
remember
2
whenever
lines of
Darth Maul-
dialogue.
Remember when Darth Maul was going to be the villain of that trilogy?
And then
Yeah.
they tried to transfer that over to Jango Fett, and he barely did anything.
And died.
it's like the marketing people just had weren't allowed to see the movies. They're like, I don't know, those characters look kind of cool.
I remember when General Grievous was a big deal, and then, halfway through the movie, you realize, like, oh, fuck, we're at the end of a trilogy. Why are we introducing new characters?
But I mean, that's the kind of marketing that Star Wars created. Like Star Wars created the machine that we see now that has, I mean, the machine that would eventually destroy the Batman franchise was created with Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a very weird thought. Like, think about Empire Strikes Back and the fact that Boba Fett was created specifically for that movie. Boba Fett appeared in the holiday special between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back for the first time in animated form. They didn't even have his colors right because they hadn't finished the design, but they were so eager to get that character out there and get hype going.
And guess what? How did the Boba Fett figure first appear? A mail giveaway that you had to mail away for him long before Empire Strikes Back even came out.
And
you had to get the toy.
And once again, miscolored because they hadn't finalized the design.
But it had Star Wars on it, so kids sent out for that Booba Joe dude.
Who could fire a rocket on his back. That thing you couldn't do in any of the movies.
They actually stopped that because it was a choking hazard. They
Oh yeah, I think some kids actually choked pretty badly from that thing.
Yeah, they pretty much immediately stopped. And only a couple of them went out, and then they started gluing them in. So I think you got a Boba Fett that was less likely to murder your children.
Wait, is that why you can't use it in
Yes.
Jedi?
That's right.
Oh god, it's been glued in here. It explodes.
Lands in the sun.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Character killed by physical comedy.
Yeah, we're talking about Jango and Maul and Grievous being Blue Ball's characters. That was in the original trilogy.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying, I don't think any of us are saying that that's a prequel trilogy thing. Star Wars excelled at that kind of thing.
Really did.
They were better in the original trilogy carrying up characters over. Like Darth Vader, obviously, 1, 2, 3, he was the main threat.
Sure, but
Tarkin was never really had that much to do. He had a couple lines, but you couldn't consider him like a major threat.
Look how much Boba was built up, though. And
he still gets an action beat in the, he gets, 2 movies to kind of show off.
Really?
Well, he doesn't do anything.
He is instrumental in the Empire Strikes Back. He is instrumental. He is the one who notices when they're flying off the trash and reports it. So if it wasn't for Boba Fett, they never would have caught him at Cloud City.
That's why he's built up so much, and then nothing happens to him. He dies thanks to physical comedy.
He stands there and lets Han be frozen and then puts him, lets other people load him onto his ship and then flies away.
He's also the only one smart enough to find these guys.
At least, I will give Jango Fett this. Jango Fett got to fight Obi-Wan. He got to fight characters and actually have, stakes attached.
He died dramatically in battle. What did Boba Fett do? A blind man accidentally knocked him into a fucking sand vagina thing in the middle of the desert that ate him.
And he
does fight Luke Skywalker as well.
Look,
Is that a fight?
His weapon.
No, he wraps him up in the wrist cord thing. He gets his laser cut in half.
Cuts open.
He has to wiggle out of it. It takes him a second.
I don't like you defending. Listen, I love Boba Fett, but
Temporarily restraining
incapacitates.
Luke Skywalker is not a battle. I'm sorry.
He was told no disintegrations.
You know what else kicked Luke Skywalker's ass? The cold.
Dude, have you ever been in the cold?
Yeah,
That
it
means 9 out of
sucks,
10
man.
times.
It sucks. It really sucks. I know, but really. That's what
Look, they
kicked
had-
Luke Skywalker's ass. Sub-zero
sorry,
temperatures.
Dude,
The day after
that
tomorrow
cold was so
aside-
bad it just killed that Tauntaun. That thing didn't stand a chance, and that's a cold weather animal. How is a Jedi supposed to stand the cold? I wouldn't be able to take it.
Is that a cold weather animal? Is there anything backing that up? What the fuck is a tauntaun? Is that? It's just like
That's
a
got to be
space
native to
camel
Hoth.
to me.
Would they drive space camels to Hoth, or would they just take care of the animals that are there? I'm going to look this up on Wikipedia.
Please do. Like, they're a ragtag rebellion. This would surprise me if they were that dumb. I mean, did anything the rebels do be that smart?
Oh my God, we're actually having a Star Wars debate.
Listen, it was bound to happen at least once in this episode.
We became the stereotypical Star Wars nerds.
Listen.
All right, so
okay.
according to Wikipedia, Tauntauns, pronounced Tauntaun, were a species of non-sentient lizards native to the snowy plains of Hoth.
Wait.
They were used by the members of the Rebel
Lizards?
Alliance after their domesticated...
Lizards
They had
are
fur.
Snow Planet?
Yes.
They're cold-blooded. They would freeze.
Yeah, and they're covered in fur. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Look, I'm reading what Wikipedia says.
Wikipedia's fucking wrong.
No, man, they're the experts.
Okay, can you guys see just a little glimmer of why I didn't like the expanded universe?
Sure-footed and furry, the Tauntauns were well adapted to the daytime temperatures on Hoth, although they could not handle the chilling extremes of the night, which could often reach below negative 60 degrees Celsius. They featured scaly skin beneath their heavy layers of fur and secreted thick, pungent oils to attract males.
Ew.
Why would that have... Who wrote that?
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
He just shoves Luke up that Tauntaun's vag. Get in there, Luke. Oh,
Oh, Jesus.
Wait, why did someone deliberately make the choice in the expanded universe that the Tauntauns are reptiles under their fur?
I'm sure that's from a trading card or something.
This is the same version of Star Wars where the Emperor clones himself and becomes a villain again.
To be fair, that's totally an Emperor move. That needs
It
to be
is.
more
It's in character. But that's like 90s Lex Luthor.
Wait, this makes it sound like the Emperor was the good guys in the Tauntauns case. Kept in pens, the Tauntauns were ultimately released from captivity when the Galactic Empire invaded the planet during the Battle of Hoth.
Okay, I want to talk about this, because this is a great segue. What the fuck in the original trilogy does the Empire do wrong?
They're kind of snobby. I mean, it's all humans. All humans, like, so aliens kind of get the shaft and they'll, work order.
They use torture, so...
They did blow up Alderaan
Yeah, they did blow up all...
Okay,
and kill billions of people.
but that was because of the rebels.
But that doesn't mean
They
that
didn't
an
actually
entire
have to blow
planet...
that planet up, yeah.
It's not an
Okay.
entire planet of rebels.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, maybe they knew Jimmy Smits was on that goddamn planet, and they were like, no more Jimmy Smits.
But no, if they knew Jimmy Smits was on there, they wouldn't have blown it up because they would have realized, hey, that's Jimmy Smits.
Let's get his autograph, guys.
I was talking about this morning, and I think the biggest crime of the Empire was that they were really shitty at managing money. 'Cause if you look at
Of course you would
the
think
prequel
that.
trilogy, everything's shiny and new, and they have little robots that do everything. But then we get to the original trilogy, and everything's dirty and broken down, and a lot of the fancy robots they're using before are nowhere to be found. There are these crappy, used R2 units, with bad motivators, and that's what they have to use. And the only, civil works project they have is building the Death Star so they can blow up planets.
Hey, Cody, can I ask you
I think, yeah.
what if there was a planet-sized battle station made out of money?
No.
The Money Star.
No.
I thought about this. And it would be made of all gold. All the gold in the universe would just be gathered together to make one fully operational battle station that the Emperor could sit upon. And people would know it's coming because the reflection would just blind them on their planet as they saw the Money Star fly by.
Yeah, but with the volume of gold, it would weigh so much, it would have its own gravitational pull.
Exactly.
It brings in more money.
Mike, why?
I'm
Why
sorry.
would you-
This is
why
officially my
would you-
new favorite episode.
Why would you take that? You knew what you were doing.
You're damn right I did, and I do it again.
I'm just saying, I'd be more intimidated by a giant money star than a Death Star.
Oh, they're so rich.
Did you just see the Emperor sitting in his throne looking out wearing sunglasses to protect himself from the glare?
The glare of his own fully operational. The entire inside is gold as well. The chair is gold. The controls are gold. It's all gold. And it's operated by circuits made of platinum.
Just for that little extra money touch.
And that's why they blew up Alderaan, because it was a fucking poor planet. It was just made of hobos. One other idea I had, they mentioned that the Galactic Senate has been disbanded at the start of A New Hope. So what do you think they're doing on Coruscant in like the big Galactic Congress that used to be there with like all those hover pods where senators would sit down and move around? I have an idea, actually. This was not a real question. I was just going to answer it.
Well, I'm glad we could be here for it.
I think it was used for giant space orgies. Like, Emperor Palpatine would sit in the center post.
Yes.
He would have a control panel of different senators. It would basically be different whores. And he would use it like Tinder. Like, he would swipe through their pictures until he found someone he was interested in. He'd swipe right, and their little pod would like hover into position.
Take off your clothes. Ask for Uncle Powder.
Good.
Here's what I'm imagining. That same scenario happens, and then Yoda reappears, and the exact same fight from the end of Revenge of the Sith happens, but there are Twi'lek whores in them, so they're all flying and screaming.
Right?
And Sidious is wearing chaps. He's
to be fair,
wearing
each
nothing.
pod would have a specific whore from that planet. So, you'd have like Yoda whores and Twi'lek whores
and E.T. whores.
Yoda whores.
Gamorrean whores.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, here's what I want to know.
Tauntaun whores, yeah.
Okay, putting aside all this for a minute. Cody, are you still on Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Wikipedia, I should say?
Yes.
I want to know what race Yoda is, because
Yoda? Okay.
It's unknown.
I've never been able to, get a definitive answer for this.
I think that's one that they've just never bothered really explaining.
It's too mysterious.
Species unknown.
They came up with a rationalization for the Tauntauns being lizards, but they couldn't say what
Yoda are.
Yeah.
Yoda is one of the most renowned and powerful Jedi Masters in galactic history. Standing at about 66 centimeters tall, he was a male member of a mysterious species.
And this isn't like a B character or something. They have, okay, Mike, you went into this. They have a detailed backstory for Lobot.
Oh yeah, Lobot was an adventurer. He was the Punisher for a little while. It was amazing.
There were space pirates involved.
I actually found an amazing fact about that, because I was re-listening to the pulp commentary for Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
Cross-promotion!
Ting! And went to look up Lobot's backstory for myself. If I'm not mistaken, but from what I saw on there, all of that backstory is from the recent Charles Soule Lando series.
Really?
What?
That was all from the mind who gave us She-Hulk.
Oh, I have to read this. That's fucking
I can't accept this. I can't accept. Marvel cannot have created that.
That's fucking awesome.
That's a Topps Comics thing.
So on Wikipedia, there's actually a whole page dedicated to Yoda's species and just discussing its mystery.
Do they ever name it?
Star Wars creator George Lucas chose to keep the name and background of Yoda species a mystery. As of 2015, both Yoda and Yaddle's official databank entries on StarWars.com still list their species as unknown. Then there's a quote from George Lucas about Yoda's background. So he's a mystery character. He's a magical character. He has no background. He comes and he goes. He's the subversive, secret, mysterious stranger that enters the film and then exits at the end.
And then he's given all sorts of exposition in the prequels, and he's still never given a species check.
For some reason, he refuses to say what species Yoda is, because that makes a difference.
I just like how Lucas's thing is, Yoda's, he's kind of a hobo. He comes and he goes, and sometimes he takes the silverware.
Here we go, though. So, you guys know how when they split the canon, there became, like, the Disney official canon, and then all of the extended universe stuff was split into legends?
Yeah.
If you go on Wikipedia, they actually have different tabs now. If you go to, like, Yoda's species, there's the canon tab, where he's listed as unknown. Then there's the legends tab, where it's still not known. But,
I knew that was going to happen. But the
Jedi Master Yoda was the best-known member of a Force-sensitive species whose true name was not recorded. Known in some sources simply as Yoda's species. There is a quote at the top of the page saying, they have Master Yoda's species listed as Lanik and his midi-chlorian count at 4 million. That's just ridiculous. Whoever Coleman Trebot is, he doesn't believe in any of that.
That goddamn fake thing is ridiculous.
Coleman Trevor is a male Verk from Sembia, who's a Jedi Master.
Oh, good for him.
Excellent. But you know what else Yoda is? Wrong about everything.
Well, he's a filthy liar.
And that's my ham-fisted segue in talking about the overall arc of the original trilogy. A fascinating thing James and I have spoken about a couple times.
Oh, yeah. The fact that Star Wars, despite on the surface being this very black and white, ultimate good versus ultimate evil movie, actually has a very anti-authoritarian bend. It's kind of subversive in a way that doesn't really get talked about very often.
Yeah, it's a lot of plot threads that are definitely in the original trilogy, but they're far more subtext. They come out a little bit more definitely in Return of the Jedi, which I'll talk about. But if you combine them with the prequels all in one straight line, it becomes much more clear about what they're trying to say. And Return of the Jedi, it's a movie, of course, a lot of people like. Definitely the weakest of the original trilogy, except for pretty much everything with Luke and Vader.
Yeah, I mean, it is still a very, very solid movie, but
definitely.
it is not anywhere close to the two.
Well,
No. And that ending scene between Luke Vader and Luke Vader and the Emperor, with just them discussing, good and evil and the dark side and the light side and all this, just talking philosophy for essentially 15 minutes. That ending moment where Luke decides not to kill Vader, not only does he stop going to the dark side, giving into his hate to kill Vader, but he throws, the very important thing is he throws his lightsaber away. Now, while he calls himself a Jedi, he actually, in that moment, rejects both dark side and light side rhetoric at the same time. He calls himself a Jedi because he's accepting the ideals of the Jedi, but he's also kind of rejecting all of this bullshit at the same time. He's essentially being his own person. Because remember, Luke was never necessarily trained as a Jedi by Yoda, because he never actually went back until Return of the Jedi. He became a Jedi by pretty much self-training himself. And throughout Return of the Jedi, the Star Wars movies are very revered for being this it's pure good versus pure evil, and the lines are very clearly drawn. When actually the ending of Return of the Jedi... Really, Cody?
Sorry.
I was just seeing if you're correct, that's all.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Boba Fett.
But he looks really cool.
But that's the kind of thing the Star Wars movies are revered for. And something Luke says earlier, Yoda and Obi-Wan are appearing to him and telling him to fucking kill Darth Vader. And Luke is saying, no, I still see good in him. They're like, no, he turned to the dark side. He's pure, unadulterated evil. Anakin Skywalker is dead. Just fucking kill him. And Luke's point is, no, there's no such thing as that. He's still good somewhere. Like, he can't just flip the switch like that. And in that moment, he accepts, I'm not going to kill Darth Vader. I'm not even going to kill the Emperor. I'm just going to stand up for this. And so if the Emperor wants to kill us both, then that's what's going to happen.
Well, backing up what you're saying, there's a very key moment that has always stuck with me, even as a child, watching Return of the Jedi, where I think you know where I'm going with this. It's the scene where Ben appears to Luke right after Yoda has died, and Luke confronts him straight up on the fact that, why didn't you tell me that my father was Darth Vader?
Yeah.
And it's very important to note the exact phrasing and wording that Obi-Wan uses when he describes this, in that he says, so what I told you was true from a certain point of view. And then when Luke questions him on this, he says, you'll find that many of the ideals we cling to rely on a certain point of view. So the Jedis are essentially self-taught warriors who go by a coda that they all interpret in different ways. Because even Obi-Wan and Yoda don't agree on the way to train Luke in Empire, because Yoda feels that he's got too much temperament, that he can't be trained, that he's too old, like all this, like he's making all these excuses. And Obi-Wan keeps pointing out, it's like, I was like this. Like, I was all of this, all of these things, and you trained me, so train him. So the Jedi are very loosely defined, I would say, in the original trilogy, because they're held up as the paragons of what is ultimately good, but they're also made out to be soldiers and just people who follow like, the whole reason that they go to Ben Kenobi for the first time, Leia gives R2 the message, is because he worked with her father in the Clone Wars. It's said explicitly, he served under her father in the Clone Wars. So they were servants of the government.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how that actually works out, because there's a Jedi Council, and they seem like they shouldn't be allowed to do fundraisers because they specialize in mind tricks, like they can force you to buy their Star Wars cookies. And
Star Wars
on the
cookies.
other hand, the other choice is for them to be funded through the Republic, so they're tied into the government, which seems really bad when you have an independent group of guys who technically are overseen by a political group.
Well, listen here, Space Wizards.
You just described religion in our real world, Cody.
Well, first of all, Star Wars is a very heavy allegory for religion in terms of like all the mythology. Like, people have gone over this in length in other places, but yeah, I mean, the Force is basically what people amount to God or the Holy Trinity or whatever. I mean, it's there. But also, going to a non-serious point, I just want to go back to what Cody said about the Star Wars cookies, and all I can imagine is Yoda in front of a bake sale sign at the side of
Buy them, you will.
raisin oatmeal. You will get them.
That'll fuck you up.
Like, I just imagine him like outside of Mos Eisley Spaceport, just like with a side like lemonade stand type deal.
Like, there has to be a huge amount of overhead to keep the Jedi Temple running, and Jedis go flying across the universe building lightsabers, using the library, training
Using the library.
Like, okay, that's a significant amount of funds. I wonder if there's like a PBS, charity fundraising event, like you're trying to watch your galactic television, and Obi-Wan Kenobi comes out and basically like harasses you for 20 minutes until you give some money to the Jedi and you get a tote bag.
Well, Obi-Wan seems like the kind of character who would harass you into doing something for the Force, because going back to Mike's point, isn't the entire reason that Luke becomes a Jedi is because Obi-Wan keeps pushing him to become a Jedi?
Yeah.
Your family's dead. Might as well come with me. Your life's over.
And a fascinating thing that, once again, it's not something that's clear at all until if you combine Anakin's story all the way through to his end in Return of the Jedi. A lot of people still cling on to the Chosen One thing. It's like, okay, if he's the Chosen One who brings balance to the Force, which, of course, the entire point of the Star Wars saga is to kind of turns that whole trope on its head. But also, I should say that now that Force Awakens happens, and clearly the Force is still left unchecked by the fact that there are still like people using it and still using it for dark things with Kylo Ren and all that. It's like that's kind of been left in the dust by this point. Yeah, but how does Vader accomplish that in the end? He protects somebody he loves by killing someone. That thing that, you go back and watch the prequels, has been drilled into his head is the path to the dark side and wrong. And he should never do that. That whole thing that dragged him to the dark side in the first place, that religious rhetoric that was just pummeled into him, that's how he ultimately brings balance to the Force. And that's after Luke has just rejected both the ways of the Sith and the Jedi at once. Like, it's all brought down by essentially the idea of outside forces from those two sects.
Yeah, it's easy to watch the movies and just recognize the tropes of, Master Yoda and Obi-Wan as the wise old mentors and just take everything that they say for granted. But when you really look at the trilogy, it becomes very, very apparent that, oh yeah, the Jedis were kind of full of shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yoda and Obi-Wan created Darth Vader. So bringing back that old rhetoric and the system that created all of that, it actually kind of a mistake. What they need is a combination of the old and the new.
Yeah, the thing that ultimately brought balance to the Force was the destruction of both the Jedi and the Sith. Both those things needed to die. Like, if you want to go into Anakin being the chosen one, everything that ever happened with him went into balancing out the Force. Him destroying the Jedi and falling to the dark side was all part of that. Even though, of course, ultimately something that Star Wars saga tries to get across is the chosen one idea is some bullshit and doesn't make any sense. I mean, Qui-Gon was the only correct Jedi in the entire saga, but he still believed in that and was wrong. Which I actually like. I like how the one guy who was like, yeah, these ways don't make a lot of sense, and it should be more like this, and philosophy, and was still wrong about something, because he still believed in these old ideas and ways.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, he's the one that brought Anakin into the fold, so he was kind of the one to start this chain of events by foolishly believing in this prophecy. So it's kind of a very, like, thin line that they walk that they kind of trip over a lot when you start to think of, like, the moral ethics and all that, because, I mean, they're pushing for a very old guard way of thinking, and Luke is the new guard. Luke is the only one who can carry this forward because he's the last living remaining Jedi, and what he chooses is to do something completely different and choose peace and resolve over just war once again. Like, he doesn't want to...
To be fair, he is partially responsible for blowing up 2 Death Stars and probably murdering millions of people.
Hey, he didn't blow up the second Death Star. That was Lando.
Yeah, that was on Lando.
Lando, you son of a bitch.
Okay.
Just imagine this, though. If the Money Star had existed instead of the Death Star, all the stormtroopers are wearing gold armor, and when the Money Star explodes, it shatters and sends wealth across the universe.
Cody.
Which probably murders the people on the planet when it rains down on them. But they're wealthy. They die wealthy.
Cody, I want you to think about something for a minute, though.
Yeah.
Captain Phasma's armor is chrome.
Mm-hmm.
Your theory is correct.
That's right. That could be platinum.
The Money Star.
Gwendolyn Christie is built well enough to just walk around in heavy platinum at all times.
It's true.
But going back to what we were saying, you have to also take into consideration the era that Empire and Jedi were filmed in, like the early to mid 80s, where we were in the midst of the Reagan Revolution.
Yeah.
A foggy old B-movie actor going on TV and telling everyone that we need to go back to the way things were when we were kids. We need to bring back the old religion, the old domestic policy, the old way of thinking, which the target audience for Star Wars was deeply against.
Look at the original script to The Star Wars is a heavily, heavily, heavily political movie. Like, all that political stuff ended up going over to the prequels, but that's how it started.
Oh, did it ever?
It was a movie about politics on top of being a sci-fi fantasy film.
That doesn't get the kids in the theaters, nothing will.
I mean, that's why there's a government whatsoever in terms of, I mean, if you have an empire, why would you need to bring up a government and separate, like, different systems and jurisdictions and all that when you would just have this overworking thing, if not to just dissolve it? And that's what's so fascinating about going back to a point we made like an hour ago, like talking about A New Hope versus Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. That's kind of where that stuff began and ended in the original trilogy. in terms of just the overarching politics of it all. And then the other two were just war movies and space movies and science fiction movies.
There's an interesting thing in A New Hope that a lot of people kind of don't pick up on, but something Luke wants to go to the academy. Like, that's how he starts A New Hope. He wants to go to the academy.
Well, also, like, not only that, but he's seen with a model of, and I was the one that pointed this out in the pulp commentary for the Star Wars movies.
Cross promotion!
Thank you.
Ding!
He's playing with a model of what it would eventually become the cruiser for the Emperor. So essentially, he's all
Actually has a little Emperor action figure inside.
Because, like, as something James pointed out in those
Sidious
commentaries,
does.
he wants to go, and, I mean, essentially the Empire is the government, and that's the military. He wants to go into the military. Like, that's the thing. Luke wants to go and be a stormtrooper, essentially. Like, but he ends up falling into this whole other thing and finding this whole other way of seeing things and seeing the galaxy, and falls in with the rebellion.
You know, it was really fortunate that happened because he was a little short to be a stormtrooper anyways.
They had ways of correcting that.
Well,
why don't I just imagine the Emperor, make you tall, just forcing Luke's tendons to get taller and taller.
he's doing
They
it
stuff
with
his
the
spine with discs of gold.
So I just imagine they would give him cyborg ankles that were like flesh colored, like his hand later is.
Well, in a way to weirdly contradict the point that was just made, I should point out that as I was watching New Hope today, I noticed that even though Luke is playing with like a little figure of like the Empire and he's talking about going to the Academy, he bolts up with excitement the minute that C-3PO mentions the rebellion, so he seems neutral.
He just wants fucking war, man. He also gets excited when they mention the Clone War. He's like, oh, tell me about all those people that died. I want to know.
So he's a psychopath like his father.
Yes.
Like his father before him.
He gets it honest.
With his robo hand. Anyway, that's my insane take on the ending of Return of the Jedi. I'm obsessed with destroying everyone's idea of what Star Wars is.
You want Star Wars to belong to you.
Because listen, all that's in there, just no one... I mean, people will talk about the ending and what it means, but I feel like they miss so much by kind of wanting to hold on to what they think Star Wars is versus ultimately Star Wars is a deconstruction of everything you've been told in these movies. And that's what Jedi is. It deconstructs all of that until you just get, Luke as this outsider who's come into all this and kind of going, this is all wrong.
Yeah, it starts out as a fairy tale, and by the last movie is just an inversion of that.
Yeah.
It's like how I get whenever people misinterpret Fahrenheit 451. Like, oh yeah, it's all about government censorship. No, it's actually the opposite of that. Did you read the book?
Well, I mean, didn't the author storm out of a session because he was repeatedly told that his own book was something else?
Yep.
Like, no, everyone misses the fact that the reason the government censors books in that novel is because the people force them to, because books are confusing and make them angry.
Well,
if anything, it's the 1940s version of Idiocracy.
Well, here's something that I kind of want to bleed into through that, and that we've talked a lot about how the Jedi are wrong in the way that they're set up. Let's talk about the fact that the Empire starts off the way it starts off because of really weird intentions, but also at the same time, they're the mirror image of the Jedi Knights in that they're just as insane, but they're more overtly evil.
Yeah, I mean, what's the Emperor's ultimate plan for taking over the galaxy? Oh, if I just rule everything will be so much better.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, he doesn't even seem to have that in goal of mind. He just wants it.
To be fair, if you own the galaxy, you'd probably think everything was going pretty good too.
It's true. I mean, Lucas
if anyone complained, you just murder them.
I mean, Lucas has flat out called out the fact that all the Emperor wants is peace throughout the entire universe. He just figures he just has to rule it. I mean, obviously, Doctor Doom inspirations there.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that he's even going so far as to wanting Luke to kill him to get that point across because he wants to carry out the legacy of himself to make sure the Empire lives so that even beyond himself, it maintains an order.
1,000-year empire.
Made of gold. Galactic space gold.
Galactic space gold.
I mean, the Jedi and the Sith are polar opposites of each other, and the Sith is all about, relishing in your own emotions, and the Jedi are all about, just don't have emotions. Just never have emotions. Bad thing.
Basically, it's a weird, really weird, like, painting of how different religious ideologies go at each other with, like, okay, do all of the things, but just believe in this one thing, and then you're forgiven. Like, essentially, the Sith are like the Catholic Church, and then the Jedi are like, I don't know, like
the Mormons.
Essentially,
yeah.
That's not even really a joke.
They do have magic underwear.
Oh yeah. Well, Obi-Wan's not wearing anything underneath that robe, but I mean,
but the sand will get up in there.
No, not sand.
Sand check.
Nightmare.blogspot.com. Check out those commentaries.
Cross promotion.
But I just kind of want to go into my final sort of statement on Star Wars as the 3 original trilogy movies exist, which is
MB drops down a tome of 10,000 pages and begins to read.
Let me tell you a tale. Wind blows.
I pull out my own Poetic Edda.
Cody wraps himself in a gold blanket. How does that even work, Cody?
It is glorious, and it is how I must end.
It's how you must end?
Exactly. I would just self-immolation while wrapped in a gold blanket. It would be glorious.
I'm just shaking my head. Go on, MB.
Okay, so my big takeaway from Star Wars as just not really even films, not even really my personal feelings for the characters and how much I love them. Because a lot of what works about Star Wars is the characters and the fact that they're made immensely likable and some of the most multi-layered characters in any franchise whatsoever. I mean, you don't look at these characters and go like, that's a one-note dimensional character. Like, with Luke, he's not just one thing. With Han, he's not just one thing. With Vader, he's not just one thing. Even the Emperor, as we explained, he's not just one thing.
He's a party animal.
Yes, he is.
Good. Let the tequila flow through you.
But even going beyond all that, all the stuff that people have talked about endlessly, the thing that I have noticed the most about Star Wars is that it is not one genre. It is possibly the only franchise, the only major franchise to exist to be of an adaptive multi-genre subgenre, in that it encapsulates the idea of the fantasy movie with the science fiction movie, with the space pirate movie in a weird way, and with the morality and government movie, with the war movie, with the action movie, with the romance. It's a sweeping epic. It's this, boiled hardtail, like coming of age story. It's all of these things combined into one package, and not only did that make it so hard to market back in the day, but that is ultimately what made it something that is going to last forever, because the key to Star Wars' success and what makes it great is that it is so many different things wrapped into one tangible thing.
Yeah, that's all pretty cool, but did they have pod racing?
Now this is pod racing.
I was going to say that for the last line. Now this is podcasting, and then have everyone just unsubscribe from iTunes.
But yeah, the reason Star Wars works is because you can get so many different things out of it that you can't get out of anything else. I mean, you go to a Star Trek movie, you basically know what to get, or you can get something a little different, but your options are kind of limited in what you take away. I love superhero movies. I love Batman. I love Superman. I love Spider-Man. I love all those characters. I'm not going to sit here and say that those are multi-layered things that you can take various things away that are completely contradictory to each other, because they all fall in the same sort of line. Star Wars, on the other hand, you could talk about endlessly and probably be wrong about your entire life and then find a new way to look at it later in life, because it's that ingrained in the culture and it's that multi-dimensional, because so many people have lended their hand to creating it and crafting it and fine-tuning it that ultimately, when it boils down to what it is now, is that it's of its own separate genre. It is Star Wars. It is the thing that is of its own little corner of media. And that is the reason I think that ultimately it's never going to go away.
Were you just hired by Disney?
Possibly.
MB, are those mouse ears on your head?
No,
I
no.
knew it.
Where
And this is why, when
mouse
we
ears?
release one Star
What
Wars
mouse
movie a
ears?
year for the rest of eternity, you will keep coming back and giving us money.
See Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I didn't say that.
Cross promotion.
Ross promo. Wait a minute.
You think you can play this game, boy?
Go to end the show.
Everyone go home. Or go see Star Wars. Probably go see Star Wars. That's what I'm doing.
See Star Wars, because
Go see Star Wars.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm just going to say the Force was strong with it.
I don't have anything funnier than that. That's a wrap.
You know, I had a bad feeling about this, but that turned out pretty good.
And like that, he's gone.
I'm gonna follow through with actually leaving. Good night, everyone.
I like how he signed off like he's ending Box Office Pulp. Good night, everyone.
It's over now. Goodbye. It was fun while it lasted. As I hop on the Money Star and fly into the sun.
Wait, why did he kill himself at the end?
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
This meeting will come to order. The Legion of Pulp is now in session. In a moment, iTunes. Yes, Quizmotron.
I was wondering, Emperor Palpatine, if I could perhaps...
Box Office Pulp thinks we need a few items to pawn on the black market.
Box Office Pulp Guy, you have a podcast dedicated to movie analysis. Pinhead, your pleasure puzzles are deadly. Isaac, you've got corn.
Gone?
What more do you need?
How about a nuclear warhead?
What?
All other supervillains have them. With a nuclear warhead, I shall leave all other podcasts to tear themselves apart with paranoia.
Box Office Pulp wants a magic lasso to hang himself with.
Can I get a ship in a bottle kit
I demand more corn.
to make my own ship in a bottle?
Oh, enough of this. The hell do I look like, Santa Claus? We're wasting valuable time. Right now, my Pope drones are rewriting Apple's code to make our podcast #1 on iTunes.
Excuse me, Emperor.
Quizmotron, what is it?
All Quizmotron wants is pants. A decent pair of pants.
Darth Vader wants pants too.
Order! Order!
Glory to the corn.
Pain is not supposed to be this complicated.
Tune in next week at popepodcastnetwork.wordpress.com.
I don't even know how I deal with any of you on a daily basis.